Hey guys, Devin with On Earth and Heaven here. Just on lunch break, thought I'd have share some thoughts about the seasons, and apologies for the noisy traffic nearby. So the seasons were given to us like to divide up our work throughout the year, and a lot of people see the seasons as starting with spring, but that's really not true. It does start with winter, and with winter, you can't. Winter's for preparation. You can't plant anything really, and you have a lot of time to prepare and plan. So you can prepare your equipment, you can prepare your plant stock, um, and in general plan out what you're going to be doing over the course of the next, 3 seasons. Um, this is also in like the most pretty much depending where you live. This can be when like the majority of the decomposition can happen. Um, there's a lot of water getting into the soil, so everything's getting ready for spring. Now, when spring hits, early spring at least, um, this is when a lot of your perennials start to wake up. Hopefully, those are all already where you wanted, because in the fall, and over the winter, you can kind of move trees around, at least for a time. Um, and when spring comes, your perennials should be where they're going to be, or you should at least know where they're going to be if you're going to be purchasing them later on. But you should really plant that stuff in the early spring. Um, But throughout the early and mid into spring is when you can start sowing, especially after the last frost. You can start sowing your annual vegetables, um, or grain or whatever you're doing. And spring is a time where you actually, so imagine in the winter you're building a ball, and the spring is when you push it, and that's when things start to actually begin to move. It's a sort of first huzzah, but it's not. I mean, there's planning, but you should already know what you're doing out in, coming out of winter. Summer is when the maximum amount of energy is being received because the sun is right overhead, and everything that you set in motion is picking up speed, and everything is receiving energy and growing and producing a yield. And honestly, in summer, there's not as much to do as in the spring or the fall. Summer can kind of be time for maintenance, both in terms of your equipment and in terms of your growing space. Um, it's a good time for observation and learning what not to do next spring or winter. But honestly, summer there's not always as much to do. I'm obviously generalizing here, um, in all this, just kind of my own observations. Fall is extremely busy. That's when most of your yields, the snow, the ball that you've been pushing has been picking up speed, and now it kind of is maximum speed, or rather, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's been growing this whole time. It's the biggest it's going to be. I don't know what this analogy is, um, but your work is sort of it's at a point where you get it's like paycheck day. It's payday, and obviously, I mean, you should be have been getting a yield throughout the entire season, but this is when a lot of yield comes in. Your grains, lots of fruits, lots of roots, things like that. It's like just a high yield time, and you're getting a double portion for the season because usually over winter you're not going to be able to get any yield. There's some things where you kind of do, but for the most part, fall is getting you through winter, um, and usually you're most hungry in the spring. But fall, is when things you kind of cut stuff back and the reset begins, and you can start once we're getting frosts and trees are dormant. You can begin to move trees. This is also the best time to plant trees. This is the best time to plant perennials in general. About 80% of root growth happens after the leaf drop. So if you plant trees just before leaf drop, that's the best time. Uh, Not in the spring like the retailers have you trying to do. So fall happens, you plant stuff out, move things around, and then winter happens, and then it's time to plan again for the next season. So super cool. It's clearly designed. It's clearly purpose in each of these seasons, or parts of the seasons. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. My break's almost over now. I love you guys. God bless you guys. Have a great day. Let Christ be glorified and magnified.